Sharks v Cowboys, Thursday, 7:50 p.m. Shark team news, no changes. Cowboys team news, no changes. We've also got a text here. Can the Cowboys make the 8? What do you reckon, Smithy?
Well, if they start playing the football that we know they can play, Kempy, I think they'll make the 8. There's no doubt about that. They got a bit of room to catch up though. They haven't helped themselves at all over the last month. But I think they've been far from their best. They're going to have to do it without Taumalolo. He's out for another few weeks. But this is a huge game. This one, taking on the Sharks down in Sydney. And another point I want to make: they're actually the two teams they're playing. So the best player of judged on the field will be receiving the Paul Green medal, of course, in memory of Paul Green, who was a part of both of these clubs and was the first and only premiership coach of the Cowboys. So a lot to play for. On top of the 2 points, to be the inaugural winner of the Paul Green medal would be pretty special for one of these players. Sharkies just so hard to beat at home. I just feel as though they're a different team at home, and they're starting to build into their season. I think what we've seen over the last couple of games, I've been more impressed with their last fortnight. Defence has started to improve a bit more as well. And, the big players are just playing well. Nico Hines, of course, he's in great form. A lot of talk around him at the moment, whether he should be playing State of Origin. So I think with him playing well, the Sharks team, their defence has improved. I think they'll beat the Cowboys.
Mate, this is a tough one. I'm with you, but I'm looking at the odds here.
I'm with you, but I'm not.
Well, the Cowboys are paying $4.
Yeah, that's in a two-horse race.
Mate,
that's big.
They went down there and stole a couple of points off, well, not points, a prelim berth.
Yes.
Last year.
That's right.
Ooh, I'm not sure. Look, in regards to if you just get the punting out of it, I think the Sharks get the job done. With the Cowboys, that last 2 minutes, I want to see that for 80 minutes.
Yeah.
That last 2 minutes of that game where they were under the pump, they just kept turning up for each other constantly just repeated effort after repeated effort. They just basically said, we refuse to lose. We refuse to lose. If they can take that mindset, spread it across the 80 minutes. I know they're without Jason Taumalolo. I know they're struggling with injury. But if you're going to beat the Sharkies, if you want to get them into a grind, because unfortunately, on an attacking front, you're not going to out-attack the Sharks at the moment.
No.
They are way too silky.
Yeah.
So if I'm the Cowboys, I am trying to upset everything. You know what? I want to do what the Raiders did to the Broncos a few weeks ago. Yeah. That's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, just get in and get under their skin, make them uncomfortable. Like you can't allow the Sharks when they're in a good mood to dictate terms. You've got to get in there and really ruffle their feathers a little bit. I still don't know what's happened to the Cowboys, their defense. It's just it's a shadow of their 2022 defensive performances. It's like it's gone out the window. Like the other night, okay, so they're able to scramble and get a late try against Newcastle, who have been much improved over the last 2 to 3 weeks. But they come up with 47 missed tackles, the Cowboys, compared to Newcastle's sort of 20-odd, 23, 25. And the Knights only completed Kempy at 67%.
I know.
So the Cowboys are, they did a pretty good job with their ball control the other night. They were over 80%, but to only just get past the Knights where they didn't control the football, that's a concerning thing. Whereas defense is certainly their issue at the moment. I think attack they can get going pretty easily. Like they just need a couple of things to go their way, find their groove again. Big player back like Taumalolo, but their defense is a whole team thing. It's not sorry. It starts as an individual thing, but it's like their team defensive systems just aren't working compared to last year where they were so good.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's the contact. I just think they're losing the contact battle in attack and defence. I would be having a really close look at what their strength and conditioning has been like this year. Are they, hitting the same targets as they did in the preseason the year before?
Yep.
Are they feeling fatigued because of the World Cup, the longer year? I really think the Cowboys, compared to the big noticeable difference for me, and I spoke about it last week as well, is they're losing the contact. Like that's how they're slipping off tackles. Is just getting bumped. In attack, they're not making as many meters, or at the very least, they're not breaking games apart to make a defensive line scattered.
Mm-hmm.
So I would just love to know, is it the fact that they're fatigued from such a big year last year, or have they become complacent and they're just struggling to get back that non-complacent attitude that they had last year?
Yeah. Well, you'd like to think it's not. They shouldn't have any sort of complacency, given the way they finished. Now, they had a fantastic year. There's no doubt about that. Reaching a prelim in the NRL is a wonderful achievement, and you have to play good football to reach it. But they fell short. They didn't even get to the grand final. They weren't a chance of winning the comp, as we know now, after being beaten by Parramatta in Townsville. So, from that point of view, you can go better than what they did last year. So that should have been the challenge. And to do that, you need to be better in all forms of your game. You can't just say, we'll just roll out again this year. We were one of the better teams in the comp. It'll just happen for us again this year. It won't. And the teams that are doing so well, again, and we talk about this a lot, the teams that are doing so well this year are the ones that are committed to their defence. And as you mentioned, the contact, they're committed to the contact. They go in aggressively. They make it hard for the opposition to score tries. When you're happy just to fold and let easy tries in all the time, really hard to win games.
Yeah, it's hopefully they can turn it around. Now on to the Eels versus Knights. Eels team news: Bailey Simon's out. Sean Russell moves to centres. Hayes Dunster comes on the wing. Wittamoo Greg starts for Regan Campbell-Gillard. Makatoa joins the bench. Knights team news: no changes to the team that lost to the Cowboys last week. Ponga has named to start, but could swap with Tyson Gamble again and start from the bench. How do you see this one playing out, Smithy?
Well, look, I'm going to back Knights. I tipped the Knights against Cowboys last week too, Kempy, and they nearly got there. So I'm going to back Knights again. I've really liked what I've seen from them from the last few weeks, even though they haven't won every game. But they're playing a tougher style of footy that we haven't seen them play for a while, particularly the start of this year. Very up and down. And the Eels, particularly Regan Campbell-Gillard, huge out.
Oh, man.
Huge out. Like the combination that he has with Junior Bolo, particularly the way they start games with that power game where they just try to early meters, get you on the back foot, fatigue you through the middle, dominate the opposition forward pack. I think that's going to be, it's a huge out for Parramatta, and it could change the way they play or even approach the start of the game completely. I'm backing Knights here.
Ooh,
I'm backing them in.
I backed Knights last week as well. I think the Eels just may have a bit too much firepower in regards to Sean Lane back, Madison back for a couple of weeks now. Dylan Brown slowly, growing into the game. In saying that, if Ponga starts, you could see a marked difference. When he came on the field for the Knights, geez, he looked explosive. Geez, he looked quick.
Yeah. So we're still not, we don't know really. Like he's named to start, but he still could start off the bench. That's right.
Yeah, we're not 100% sure. But, man, this is a really tough game to – what an opportunity for the Knights, though. What a massive opportunity to go down and beat the Eels with let's say Ponga does start. Just would be incredible.
Yeah. And I think the way they look at it, the Knights, and look at last week is, hey, boys, let's go down there. Let's aim to score early points. Like, let's go after it straight up. Like, I know every team wants to start well, and that's always a goal. But some teams have different sort of mindsets. Like, you hear players and coaches talk about playing the long game. Well, that means, hey, let's not overplay our hand early. Let's just stay in it, complete our sets, kick well, defend well, and will wear the opposition down and get the points late and win the game in the second half. Whereas other teams, which I'm saying the Knights maybe should approach this game this way, is, hey, let's go after it. Let's have a go at some early shifts and chance our arm on the edges early and throw a couple of offloads away and see what happens. Like, bring guys like Lockie Miller into the game. If Kalen Ponga starts, same thing. Give him some early ball, test out the edges of the Parramatta defence. Because you look at last week, when there was a bit of scoreboard pressure on Parramatta, they come up with errors when they shouldn't have come up with errors. Like they were trying to throw miracle passes and offloads when they shouldn't have been passing offloads. Like early tackles, I think they made several mistakes on early tackles, like tackle 2, tackle 3, places where they shouldn't be making errors. And that was all through scoreboard pressure from the Broncos. Yeah,
you're absolutely right. I will say, is it time the Eels consider potentially starting hands at 9?
Well, no, because then Hodjo can't win a Dally M. Mate, possibly. I think there's been a bit of a discussion or talk around that, whether they mix that up. That may happen. Have the younger man start the game, bit of energy, bit of ball movement, bit of running, and then bring Josh Hodgson onto the field. After the sting's taken out of the match, maybe 25 minutes. Get him on when there's a little bit of fatigue in the match and he can start his craft. That may happen at some stage, Kempy. You might be on the money, mate.
Because last week he played for 31 minutes, 0 runs, 0 meters, obviously, 16 tackles, 5 misses.
Hodgson? Yeah. And I think that's why those sort of opinions were made around that Parramatta may have to address that position, and whether it is a better option to have Hands starting 9 and bringing Hodgson off the bench, just to bring experience later in the latter stages of the game. It could be an option. I wouldn't be surprised if Brad Arthur actually has a little bit of a play with that ploy.
Now let's get into our game of the round. Thanks to Suncorp, building a more resilient Queensland, and that's the Suncorp spirit. We've got the Broncos v the Rabbitohs, Friday 8 p.m, Suncorp Stadium. Corey Oates, Mam, Haas, all out. Mam, Haas being out, absolute joke, but whatever. Jesse Arthurs comes onto the wing. Jock Madden starts at 5'8". Keenan Palacia replaces Haas. Rabbitohs, Tavita Totola returns. Hame Saleh goes to the bench. Saluka Fafita is 18th man. What do you reckon, Smithy?
Yeah, look, this has been cruelled, I believe. It may well still be a blockbuster. Well, it still is. But it could have been so much more if Payne Haas and Ezra Mam and Corey Oates, poor old Corey Oates, he's just come back from a broken jaw. Now he's got a knee issue. He's out for a month. But without Mam and Haas, it's going to make it so much more difficult for the Broncos. Not saying they can't win it. I am leaning towards the Rabbitohs, though, given that those players won't be playing, Kempy. I'm with you, mate. I believe they should be playing, but they're not. They took the early pleas, a match each, so they'll sit out. Rabbitohs, they're still not... They're a strange one. They're a really strange one for me, the Rabbitohs, because they are such a talented footy side, but they show you it in patches. They don't come out and absolutely dominate sides for a full 80 minutes. Like they'll go on a bit of a run for 15 minutes and then they're happy just to almost sort of go to sleep, if you will. And then they explode again, and then they go to sleep, and then they explode again. I'd love to see them just come out from the opening whistle and just go bang, bang. We're on. Cody taking the line on. Latrell taking, tough carries off his own line, early tackles. We know what the forward pack can do. Cam Murray, of course, he plays his backside off every week. But I'd just love to see it all just click for the Rabbits, just so we can see like a complete 80-minute performance from them. Because what we are seeing in patches is like this is a team that if it all comes together, they really could put a big dint in this competition. For Broncos, I'd look at this as a huge challenge for them. Righto, boys. Hey, we're sitting top of the ladder. We're playing at home in front of our home fans. Going to be a big crowd. Friday night, and we're taking on a side that is in a bit of form at the moment with particularly some of the big name players of our code playing well also in Cody Walker and Latrell Mitchell, just to name a couple. But if they were to go out and win without Payne Haas, but in particular, Ezra Mam is playing really well, of course, in the number 6 jersey, but that really could just, I know they're confident at the moment with where they're at, but the amount of confidence they'll take out of that if they were able to get a victory against the Rabbitohs without a Payne Haas would be huge for their season.
Oh, mate, if they could go out there and beat an in-form Rabbitohs side without Payne Haas, without Ezra Mam, it would be phenomenal. Look, if I'm the Broncos, staff or whatever coaching staff, I'm laying down a challenge and say, boys, if you think you're a premiership threat, we make this a contest. We don't even necessarily need to win.
Yeah.
But we make this a contest because, the Panthers have shown, the Storm have shown, the Roosters have shown over the last few years, without key players, they still take it to the top tier sides. And I think that's the real challenge for the Brizzy Broncos. I will say as well, Haas is obviously a massive out.
Yep.
But when you sit here and you go, okay, Flegler, you're against Totola. Do you reckon you could take it to him? I think you could. Keenan, you're against Jairo. Do you reckon? I think you could take it to him too. Kurt Catewell versus Cheekham, Riki versus Host, Carrigan versus Murray. Tell me on paper that forward pack isn't just as strong as the Rabbitohs.
Yep.
So I really, as I said, I know they're big outs, but we still have a team on paper that can win this game from the Brisbane Broncos perspective.
Yep.
From the Rabbitohs perspective, oh man, more of what we did last week.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Particularly the like final stages of the game.
Yeah.
Right. They finished so strongly. Huge play down the left-hand side, of course, to come up with, the big play, the nice inside ball from AJ back to Cody Walker, which set up a try for, was it Tass? I think scored the try.
Yep.
And I must say, like I'll point out that they did an extremely good job to identify that they had Salmon. Penrith, because of a couple of changes to their side, Salmon was actually defending in that right centre position. So they knew they had a mismatch out there. They just had to get the ball out there. So great to see that those players are looking up. They're aware of what's happening in the game, aware of what the opposition are doing. So they identified that. So it shows that they're locked in at the moment. They're focused. And just on the point with the Broncos, I believe that's the way Kevy will be preparing them, knowing the way Kevy coaches. He'll just be saying, "Hey boys, let's get out there." Like we are leading this competition at the moment for a reason. We are currently the best team in the comp. We're playing in front of our home fans at our beautiful big stadium up here at Suncorp. Let's get out there and just have a crack. Like we can beat these fellas. Let's do it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Now let's get on to, that's the game of the round. Thanks to Suncorp. Make sure you're a Queensland covered. Search Suncorp Insurance for a quote today. Thanks to Suncorp. Spirit Raiders v the Dolphins. Saturday, 3 p.m, McDonald's Park, Wagga Wagga. We got Jordan Rapana returns on the wing. Nick Kotrick is out with a hammy injury. Dolphin team news. Kenny Bromwich returns from suspension. Herman SASA moves to the bench. What do you reckon, Smithers?
I find it hard to knock the Dolphins.
Same.
You just... You cannot knock them at the moment because you know they will be there. There's been one game this year where they haven't been in the match, and that was when they played the Dragons. But every other game that they've played, they've won 5 of 8 so far. Those 3 that they've lost, they've been well and truly in the game. Well and truly in the game. Like I'm talking, like what when they took on the Broncos. It took a huge play right at the death for the Broncos, Katoni Staggs, to pick that ball up off his bootlaces, beat 3 defenders, run 40 metres, beat another defender, and then score a try for the Broncos to win that one. So they could well be 6 from 8 at the moment.
Yeah.
And they've dealt with injuries. They've dealt with suspensions already in the early stages of this competition, and they're still there. They're sitting 8th at the moment. So it's hard to knock them. Canberra, they play that style of footy, as we said. You know, that is just tough, and we've seen that over the last couple of weeks. Playing in Wagga as well. Not too sure what the weather's going to be like there this weekend. It could be a little bit chilly for the Dolphins boys travelling down from Queensland, but it's hard to knock, mate. I find it hard. And thinking about saying this about the Dolphins, where compared to where we were all in the preseason, you know, looking at their squad and whatnot, you'd think you're a bit mad, sort of backing the Dolphins now, but they'll be there. They'll be right in the thick of it at the end. These guys met each other. Must just put a point out. They only met each other in round 2, so it's not that long ago. 7 weeks ago they played each other. Strange how the competition works like this, but anyway. And the Dolphins, they come from behind again in this game to win it. They scored just on the tick of half time, if I remember properly, and they had a really strong second half. In the wet it was. So there goes my theory of, you know, tricky conditions being in Wagga, a bit cooler, might be wet. So they're a team for all conditions. Mate, I'll have to back them. I have to back the Dolphins. I can't go away from them. Sorry.
Raiders had a bye last week, didn't they?
Yeah, they did. Yep.
I'm going to go Raiders because they'll be fresh, whereas Dolphins, massive performance last week. Surely the Raiders come in fresh and hot and heavy. Seagulls versus the Titans, Saturday, 5:30, 4 Points Park. Tom Trbojevic has been named to play, but will need to pass a fitness test in order to play. Tui Pelotu returns on the wing. Garrick moves to the centres for injured Brad Parker. Cooper Johns replaces Josh Schuster at 6. Talangi returns to second row. Ethan Bullimore moves back to the bench. Titans, Jojo Fafita moves to centres. Philip Sammy starts on the wing in a positional switch. Haas and Vuna replace Leeming and Michele on the bench. How do you see this playing out, Smithers?
Yeah, some big changes there with the Titans after their fail in the second half of the game on the weekend. And I think, you know, changes needed to be made just to shake up a few things around the Gold Coast Titans footy side. Seagulls, question marks over Tommy Trbojevic. Are they confident he's going to play?
I cannot believe it.
Yeah.
I cannot believe at this part of the season he goes off with a groin, even if it's a twinge. Now, maybe it's just a media spin to take away, like, the fact that, you know, he's out for a few weeks. Why he would even be considered to be playing blows my mind.
Risky, particularly when you've got an able replacement in Ruben Garrick. Like Ruben Garrick, well, he's moving to the, well, he's saying he's moving to the centres, but, you know, it might be a bit of smoke and mirrors, but that's a risky play.
On the table.
That's a risky play.
They're second on the table, mate. Like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
When you got such an important part of your outfit, with knowing his history of injuries, mate, if there's any doubt whatsoever, treat him like a thoroughbred.
100%.
Any signs of lameness, I'm using horse terms here, lameness. Any lameness, scratch him.
Mate, you got KO Weeks. He's a gun fullback. Put him back there, give him a crack. It was only 2 weeks ago Tom Trbojevic could barely run because of back spasms.
Yeah. Yep.
I am absolutely mind blown that there isn't a strong enough call, because Tommy would want to play. Of course he wants to play. You're talking about Tom Trbojevic here.
Well, every player wants to play every game.
Yeah. Make the strong call and say, Tommy, take 2 weeks off, and you'll be sweet.
And you'll be tip-top, come back in, get a couple of games, Origin's there, you play Origin, stay fit. Let's push for a premiership. Yeah.
We're sitting second against the Titans, and we're risking Tom Trbojevic.
Yeah, I don't know, big call. And then on top of that, Josh Schuster. So he misses the first few rounds I think, where Cooper Johns played in the halves, and then he comes back in, plays one game, out with injury, returns, plays one game, out with injury.
Yeah.
Just they're having some dramas at Manly there at the moment. But back to the footy. I don't know how scarred they'd be, the Titans, after that implosion in the second half where they just didn't play. Well, they stopped playing early, and then at the end, where they still held a small lead over the Dolphins, it was like they were chasing points. They were trying to throw miracle balls, and AJ Brimson, wonderful player and has played some great footy this year so far. He made that little half break down the left-hand side, and then he tried to throw that miracle ball over the top of Isako, and Isako picked it off. Titans were up by 2 at that point. It was like 4 minutes to go.
Mate, the great Fosdog, the great foreign, was doing kicks on the third off his line trying to get Pereira.
No. Hold the ball, play the set out, kick long.
Mate, I've always said, and you can, obviously you've got a way better insight into this, but I've always felt, and we were always taught, you don't attack your way out of momentum shifts. You defend your way out of momentum shifts. Am I crazy or like?
Well, mate, particularly when the scoreboard is in your favour.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not chasing points, so why play the risky play? Play the high percentage play, boys. Play the high percentage play. Run in numbers, back each other up, but we don't need to offload. We don't need to throw loopy passes over the top of defenders' hands. We don't need to kick early, cross kicks, trying to find our wingers. Just run the clock down, play the game out, and grind away to a victory. So I think even if there is changes, Tommy T obviously a big out if he's scratched late. But they've got some, as we spoke about, they've got some able replacements there. KO Weeks, of course. Reuben Garrick can move back there if needed. I think Manly will win this one, particularly at Four Pines, mate. They're strong. Yeah. They love playing there. They love playing there, and if it's a big crowd, Saturday 5:30 probably should get. I reckon they'll get a decent crowd there. They get right behind their team and they get them home.
Yeah, I just when I look at the Titans, I go, whenever the Storm and the Panthers are under the pump, what do? They go long pass to their half and they hit a wide running forward on a 3-in defender, and they go from there. And I just don't understand why teams don't just go, oh, we're a bit under the pump here. Yeah. Long pass to half, hit a wide running forward, we keep going down that corridor. Anyway, I'm couch coach here, so I know it's much harder on the field. Panthers v Tigers, Saturday 7:30, Carrington Park in Bathurst. Peachy replaces Tungo in centre. Oh, that's interesting because they've got a couple young guns. David Nofawaluma returns on the wing for his first game since round 3 at the expense of Charlie Staines and Brent Naden. Brent Naden turns to centre. How do you see this playing out, Smithers?
There was some good signs, some more positive signs from the Tigers across the weekend. I was watching them and I thought, well, it's the effort. I seen the effort. I was much more buoyed by the effort that they showed in that match. Still think they're trying to work out the game plan that works for their players. I don't know how much of this game you've seen, mate, but I think they had about 10 wraparounds in one half of football close to the line, and it was all done in relatively slow motion. It looked as though, it was the influence of, the guys that are there in charge, Robbie Farah, Benji Marshall, Tim Sheens. It was the style of footy that worked for those guys. But that was quite some time ago now. And you're dealing with completely different players as well. So it's not like you can just say, hey, boys, look, this is what worked for us. Go out and do that. It's a different game. They've got different players, different outcome, of course. So I just think that they're still trying to work out what is the best way to use the football with the players that they have. I'm thinking if you're Appy Coruscant, I'd be sitting down with the coaches and saying, listen, this is the way we need to play. Get our big forward. This is what made Penrith so strong. And again, it's a reflection of why I feel Penrith are not as fluent as they have been in the past 3 years, is the absence of Appy Coruscant. I think they're really missing the craft that he provides from 9. And when I mean craft is his show one side, come out the other, his little 2 steps to commit a marker, send his big man across the advantage line into the defensive line and creating momentum. I think that's what they're lacking at Penrith at the moment. But that's what Appy has to do as the 9, as the skipper, and say, listen, like, get me in the game. And this is the way we do it. And this is what I can do to help guys like Brooks get into the game, get their momentum across the ad line, get them at the defensive line quickly. This is the way we should be playing. I'd like to think that that's happening rather than all the coaches just saying, hey, look, this is what we want you to do.
Smithy, you want to hear something crazy?
Go on.
On the weekend, the Tigers ran for 500 more metres than Manly and had 58% possession of the ball. And they were still unable to win and execute. And when I see that, it just proves your point. Appy is getting these boys where they need to go.
Yep.
But unfortunately, the 6 and 7 are not executing the way they need to execute to win matches. It's so obvious. It's glaringly obvious.
So what they're doing, what you're saying is they're running. They've got a lot of direct running with intent. It gets them down near the try line, and then they want to do wraparounds.
Wraparounds, like you throw it in every now and then to just like throw things off. But you know what? To me as an analyst, I guess.
Yep.
It screams to me that we don't have ball players that can square defenses up. So we're
lacking ball players. Yep.
Instead, we're going to use wraparounds to try and square and hold defenses up. And it's like, that just shows you that your 6 and 7 aren't holding the defensive line up. Yeah.
Well, you know what they are, mate. They're effective plays when run properly. So and when they did numerous of plays of the wraparounds the other day, they were done with not a whole lot of speed. At times, guys mistiming their run, to punch lines or option runners, short option runners, guys out the back slightly out of position. So when you're running those type of plays, the timing has to be perfect from every play in that sequence of play. And I get, was it the first time we've seen a lot of those plays happen the way they did in the other game? Yeah, it is. So maybe they are sort of working towards something. But they tried to execute on the weekend and didn't quite come off for them. But yeah, the modern game, when you see all the good plays come off close to opposition try line in the modern game, it's all done with speed. Things happen quickly. They make defenders make decisions quickly, and it's when you find space.
Yeah, and you square you make this defense stop moving sideways.
Yep.
Obviously, we're both going. Well, I'm going Tigers because they're paying about $7,000, but I think we're going Panthers this one. But I tell you what, they got to win one soon. They got to win one soon. Sure. Warriors, Roosters, Smithy. How do you see this game playing out?
Well, I tell you what, it was again really impressive game last night until they suffered a few injuries and copped a sin binning. They were well and truly in the game. The Warriors, if they got through that game unscathed, I was actually leaning towards tipping them against the Roosters. Playing back at Mount Smart, they're over there on Sunday, 2:00. I was going to back them, but after what happened to them last night, Tohu Harris, Jazz Tavanga, Nickel Clogstad, they're all out injured. Dylan Walker, not sure what he's doing yet. He's been given 2 weeks, so I don't know whether he's contesting that or not. I'm not too sure. But, a lot of big outs. Guys coming back in, though. Volkman, Wade Egan's back. Very good players, but I think Roosters going over there. Nat Butcher back from suspension. Crichton goes to the bench. Corey Allen replaces Daniel Tupou on the wing. Of course, Daniel Tupou, you seen him limp from the field yesterday. I'm going to go the Roosters off the back of those big outs for the Warriors.
And Dragons v Bulldogs. How do you see this playing out?
Yeah, Dragons. Well, they nearly got one, didn't they? In the Big Anzac Clash, which they've actually had some good results over the years in that one. But Kyle Flanagan, mate, he's been dropped again. Joshy Reynolds, the grub, he goes into 6. Mate, I'm saying Dragons. They get a victory.
Yeah, I agree, mate. I think Dragons get the job done. I think Joshy Reynolds at 6 is going to be interesting because he hasn't. It's been good for energy, but he's actually, he has a few errors and penalties, and you add that to Marnie, it can be there's quite a few penalties when you add them together. I'm not too sure about starting Renault at 6. I wonder whether that's a smoke and mirrors for Oluwapu to potentially get a late call into the side.
Wow.
Be very interesting. But if it is, what a great return by Reynolds. If he has earned that 6 jersey again, holy, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Who would have thought?
Yeah, well, it was long odds, wasn't it? That really, he would have maybe have got that. But no, he's made his way back, and he's obviously trained hard and fought hard for that position, and he's stuck at it.
Yeah, absolutely. Flano, do you think it's... I know it sounds disrespectful, but I'm not trying to be disrespectful. Is it time he goes to Super League to get a bit of confidence back? Does he try and fight his way back in?
Well,
I just don't know.
Well, you mentioned that maybe start of the year. I think you may have tossed that up about Kyle Flanagan sort of going over there and building a bit of confidence like we've seen a lot of halves do over the years. I know having played a fair bit of football with Blake Green, he did that because he had stints with the Bulldogs and Parramatta, I believe, and then he said, "No, I'm going to go over to Super League. Try and work out my game over there." Played for, I think, Hull, and he played for, where did he win his premiership? Blake Green, I think, was it Hull? But Wigan. I think Wigan. He won a premiership and a Challenge Cup possibly with them, and so come back a completely different player, very confident. So it might do him the world of good, mate.
And also Hastings as well has gone back and he's played some really, really good footy.